Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Sun-Times story. Sun-Times education reporter Mitchell Armentrout, I wonder if there's any relation to the character from Breaking Bad, wrote that the CPS administrators offered some rare positive news as they ended the year 2018 with $324 million, quote, left over in CPS's general operating fund. They got a surplus, right?
Yeah.
No. Wrong.
Okay.
And this is where the intersection of, it's hard to discern the intersection of ignorance or purposefully misleading when it comes to the Chicago Press Corps, which, of course, is just an outpost of the D.C. Press Corps. Armentrout just doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just ignorant. Or it's purposeful propagandizing. I don't know. But here's the facts. And we'll take this up tomorrow during the Chicago Mayoral Forum. Bill Bergman over at Truth in Accounting, friend of the show, has a great breakdown on that because on this, the actual CPS financial picture because he's an economist. And, far be it from anybody in the press corps to actually lean on an economist or an accountant. Yeah, just take what the Minister of Propaganda for CPS gives you, huh? The city. Most government uses cash-based accounting rather than the more reliable accrual-based accounting. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but it's just important to understand what they're doing. The results are, if you give the accrual-based accounting picture, not to be found in the statements for the general operating fund, but in the statement of net position and statements of activities. The statement of net position takes a balance sheet point-in-time perspective. So when you do that, like a professional accountant would, like anybody that you could call at one of the big four to review your books, here's the actual position. Minus $800 million. So it's $1 billion off. Minus $800 million last year. CPS has lost money every year from 2009 to 2018. More than $7 billion over that time frame.
Billion.
Okay. Sun-Times reporting $324 million surplus last year, actually $800 million shortfall. And guess who's going to get stuck with the bill? And
taxpayers.
Right, and important, don't limit it to Chicago. And this is why you shouldn't limit interest in the Chicago mayor's race to Chicago. Because if you haven't figured out that what happens in Chicago impacts and is the responsibility imposed by the Chicago Democrats in charge of the state of everyone in the state, then I'm sorry, but your synapses are not firing. Then you're dead from the neck up. So that's why I appreciate Matt Podgorski. He's a Republican ward committeeman. He's the head of the Northwest Side GOP club in the city.
GOP. Sorry.
And a professional. He works for a living like most people that aren't connected to the political ruling class. And he, along with Chicago City Wire, which is one of the papers I co-founded, are hosting a candidate forum for many of the mayoral candidates that we've spoken to on this show who are making a formal appeal to Republican and center-right voters because, as we saw from polling this week, the race, there's 7 candidates between 9 and 15% right now.
Oh, yeah.
And Republicans,
and it's all real close.
And Republicans represent 15 to 20% of the vote. So
they need us.
This could be the pathway to the runoff to one or more candidates. And, for the first time, as I said, since Bronco Nagurski and Red Grange were in the Bears' backfield, Republicans matter in a mayoral race. The forum tomorrow, Saturday, 2:30 p.m.
Where?
2:30 p.m. St. Monica's Parish, 5136 North Nottingham.
51 what?
36 North Nottingham on the north side of the city. And to talk a little bit more about that, we're pleased to be joined by Matt Podgorski. Matt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Good to talk to you and happy to be here.
So who do we got in for tomorrow's forum thus far?
Well, so far we have confirmed Mr. Jerry Joyce, Paul Vallis, Dr. Wilson. We have LaShawn Ford, Bob Fioretti and John Kozlar. We have a maybe in Bill Daley, and the rest are no, I can't make it, or they didn't respond to our inquiries.
Okay. Wait, who didn't respond?
Let's
Call
see
them
here.
out, 'cause that's
Lori Lightfoot, Mr. Griffin, Amara Enya, and the rest were no's. Chico, McCarthy, Breckwinkle. At least they had the decency to tell us they weren't going to come.
We'll have let's see if we can get Chance
Yeah.
the Rapper to stand in for Amara Enya. That'd be good. Let's see who can, or Richie Daly could stand in for Bill.
Well, Bill
We'll
Daly.
take Richie.
I have to tell this story. So we've been trying to get him on the show, and his publicist or his campaign guy said that he doesn't do morning radio. That if we have a question for him, we could try to meet him at a location between 10 to noon every other Friday or something, and then we could get our questions answered.
Well, those are
that is so pathetic.
Why? Those are the same work hours as his brother when he was mayor.
Ayo.
10 to
But
12.
I mean, my gosh, if you're trying to, get votes, that's just I would the opposite of what I would do if I was his campaign manager.
So tell us what's going on the Northwest Side, Matt, why there's such interest to host such a forum. This was really your idea and your organization's idea. There's like a flickering light on the Northwest Side for the GOP in the state?
Yeah, you could say, I suppose, flickering. So the idea came about, we weren't really actively involved with Northwest Side GOP and the Republicans up here in the mayoral race because there are no Republicans running or anybody really that claims to be moderately conservative or even moderate. It's really a race to the left, it seems like. Nevertheless, we still have a civic duty to vote, and we, according to the numbers we polled recently, there's 97,000 Chicagoans who openly identify as Republican. That means they voted in a Republican primary. They have declared they're Republican. It's 97,000. Of those 97,000, 58,000 regularly vote in municipal elections. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means we're expecting, based on history, only a little over 500,000 people to show up to the polls. That's 10 or 11% of the people that are going to show up in a few weeks are openly Republican. And that doesn't include folks who vote Republican only in general elections. So it's a big part of the electorate. And more sort of locally, a lot of Northwest Side GOP club members and Northwest Siders in general are asking around, and they're asking me my opinion and the other ward committeemen. Who should we support? Who should we get behind? And my answer is I have no idea. I really don't know. I haven't heard a ton of the things addressed that we're concerned about. So the thought was, rather than try to just pick somebody, let's have a forum, let's get it out there. And this is a real even playing field. We are wide open to supporting whoever will give us any sort of decent, credible answer on what they'll do with the big issues. Like, we spend $10 billion a year in the city of Chicago. Is there any waste in there? Our unfunded pension liability. Have we even really actually quantified what that is relative to our revenue and our city GDP? I have a list of a half a dozen other issues which I'd love for the candidates to touch on, and we're going to ask some tough, pointed questions tomorrow with your help, Dan.
Yeah. When then how much are they allotted a certain amount of time to answer each question? You're going to hear from every candidate?
Yeah, so it's not really a debate per se. It's a forum where we're going to ask direct questions to each candidate, and then we'll give them a minute to two to respond and kind of let it go a little bit. But it's not going to be a podium format. They're all going to be sitting at a table together, and we'll have our questions scripted out, and then we will also take a few questions from the audience and read them out loud.
Yeah, just be freewheeling, have like a discussion rather than these like infernal, rigid television debates that are not just debates, they're like reciting your 30 or 60-second commercials.
Yeah.
You want a discussion, you want to allow for interplay between the candidates because that's most enjoyable and illuminating for the audience and we'll post it online so people who can't attend physically can watch it and so forth. But yeah, I assume and interestingly too about the Northwest Side GOP, Matt, and the civic mindedness and like the continued engagement. The organization really sort of formed out of the Trump candidacy or out of motivation for the Trump candidacy in 2016, yeah?
Yeah, the timing was right there, yeah. So what it did, the Republican Party in Chicago, as we've talked about many times, and to no one person's blame, has really been non-existent, right? I mean, you've had folks who really made an attempt to kind of revive it, right? Like like former or Chairman Chris Cleveland and Sean Morrison trying to do whatever he can on the county side. But it's tough, right? When 12% of the vote went to Trump in the city. Nevertheless, though, Trump's the type of guy, he really can motivate people, that 12%, that 130,000 people, to actually get out of bed and go do something. So we found actually recruiting a little bit easier after President Trump got nominated and then eventually elected. And so people, they really are engaged. And people think Republicans in Chicago are like the elite and they're all the stockbrokers. And the reality is a lot of Republicans are like me and my mom and my dad, right? My mom's a retired cop. Half the guys and gals in the organization are police officers, firefighters, city workers, or retired, all of the above, and and then the other half are private sector. So there's a lot of regular blue collar guys and gals, and they need to know something, give them some reason to vote for one of these 14 candidates. So we thought, let's have a forum, and to your point, let's let it flow a little bit. Let's follow up. Let's challenge. You were just talking about accrual accounting. I think 12 of the 14 candidates might faint if we ask him that question. Hey, should we be?
Yeah, Paul Vallis will be raising his hand.
Is the only one. Yeah, he's done the homework. He has a plan. I think you're going to be very impressed, Matt, with Paul Vallis. Just keep that name.
Well, we're taking a hard look at him for sure. And I'll ask him really pointed questions. And they'll say, so if should we accrue just expenses and not revenue, or the other way around? It seems like they're accruing future revenue but not future expenses, unfortunately. And you really should do it the other way around, right? You should always forecast your worst case scenario. So we'll ask some tough questions. We're not trying to embarrass anybody. We're not trying to trap anybody.
No.
We're trying to say, if we can wave a magic wand and tell 100,000 people how to vote, we need some information. So that's what we're going to try to get.
Yeah, I think a part of it is just, and this is what we've tried to do on this show when Amy hasn't been acting as Paul Vallis' spokesman at large.
What, Paul Vallis? Did I say Paul Vallis?
Yeah. Which is, I think the dividing line between the candidates isn't like race or gender or any of the nonsense of the left. It's who, if anyone, is interested in system change and who is really just interested in the title, the profile, future riches, and sort of maintaining the status quo while giving the appearance of change. And to me, if you can separate out the candidates into those categories, then you sort of quickly narrow your choices and you can make a more informed one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've kind of been joking around with the Northwest Side GOP guys is, the way the finances are going with the city, at least the trend, right? It's hard to say when it'll all come down if the direction doesn't change, but the trend financially, right, we're upside down. The pension liability is just not getting better, right? We're not stopping hiring employees and putting them into pensions immediately, right? So it's almost like one of the questions I kind of want to ask, and we got to figure out how to frame it. But why are you running to be the CEO of Sears?
Yeah.
Are you just trying to guide the ship slowly into the sea, or do you have a plan to turn it around? Do you just want to be there for the last 4 or 8 years and kind of liquidate whatever assets are left in the city, or do you have a plan to actually turn this around and make it a profitable city where people are moving in and not moving out, where crime is coming down, not going up? That's really what I want to get to the heart of in this forum.
Well, we'll get to those questions and many more tomorrow. Again, 2:30 p.m., St. Monica's Parish, 5136 North Nottingham, in the city on the Northwest Side. Matt Podgorski will be there, as will members of his Northwest Side Republican Club, as will I, and hopefully you. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll see you at the forum tomorrow.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
And again, it is located at, 5136 North Nottingham.
Right. And
at 2:30.
2:30.
280.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. We'll take the questions you would recommend we ask. Matt offered a couple. I've offered a couple. Amy's offered cheerleading for Paul Vallis.
Paul Vallis.
What?
Give me a V.
What would
Give me an A.
What would you like us to ask the half a dozen mayoral candidates that will be entertaining tomorrow afternoon? Take your calls.
And we thank Matt Podgorski, name assassinator, who joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Don't miss